Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're diving into one of the most intense and dramatic stories you'll find anywhere. A tale of courage, supernatural showdowns, and unwavering faith in the face of impossible odds. We're talking about the prophet Elijah. Let's jump right into the heart of this ancient conflict. Picture this. The nation of Israel is in a deep spiritual crisis. The king Ahab and his queen, Jezebel, have led the people away from worshipping God and into the worship of a pagan deity named Baal. Now, Baal was considered the god of rain, fertility, and agriculture. Essentially, the people believed Baal was the one who controlled the weather and made their crops grow. This wasn't just a minor disagreement. It was a fundamental betrayal of their identity and their history. Into this tense atmosphere walks our hero, Elijah. He's a man from a rugged, remote area called Tishbite. He's not a polished court official or a smooth-talking politician. He's a wild man of the wilderness, and he has a message directly from God. Elijah marches straight into the royal court, looks King Ahab in the eye, and makes one of the boldest declarations in history. He says, "As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years, except at my word." Let's pause and really think about how audacious this was. Elijah didn't just predict a dry spell. He was throwing down a direct challenge to the most powerful man in the land, and more importantly, to the God that Ahab and the entire nation were worshipping. He was essentially saying, "You think Baal controls the rain? Let's see about that. The real God, the God of Israel, is about to turn off the tap, and only he can turn it back on." This wasn't just a weather forecast. It was a declaration of war. A spiritual showdown was about to begin, and the battlefield was the sky itself. Elijah's announcement set the stage for an epic conflict, forcing the people to confront a critical question. Who really holds the power, Baal or the God of Israel? So, Elijah has just dropped this bombshell on King Ahab. No rain until I say so. You can imagine Ahab's reaction, probably a mix of disbelief, anger, and maybe a little bit of fear. But this wasn't just about embarrassing the king. Elijah's drought prediction was a strategic move designed to expose the powerlessness of Baal and the grave consequences of Israel's idolatry. By turning to Baal, the god of rain, they had forsaken the one true God who actually provides it. The drought was a direct, tangible consequence of their spiritual choices. It was as if God was saying, "You want to rely on a false god for your livelihood? Let's see how that works out for you." Now, after making this life-threatening announcement, Elijah needs to get out of town fast. King Ahab is not going to be happy, so God tells him, "Go east of the Jordan and hide in the Cherith ravine." And here's where the story takes a turn from a political drama to a lesson in radical trust. God tells Elijah, "You will drink from the brook, and I have directed the ravens to supply you with food there." Ravens, you heard that right. These birds, which were considered unclean in Jewish law, were now going to be Elijah's personal food delivery service. This is such a powerful image. While the entire nation, with all its wealth and resources, begins to suffer from the lack of rain, this lone prophet, hiding by a little brook, is being personally catered to by God. Twice a day, morning and evening, the ravens brought him bread and meat. This wasn't just about survival. It was a profound demonstration of God's sovereignty. God can use anything, even unclean birds, the most unlikely of messengers, to care for his people. It shows that his resources are not limited by our circumstances. While the world panics, those who trust in him can find provision in the most unexpected places. Elijah's obedience to go and hide by the brook, trusting this bizarre plan, is a testament to his faith. He believed God's promise, even when it sounded completely crazy. The whole land is suffering. But God's plan for Elijah isn't over. He doesn't just make it rain again. He has another lesson in faith to teach. This miraculous provision, day after day, in the middle of a severe famine, was a powerful testimony. It demonstrated that God's power isn't confined to Israel. He is sovereign everywhere, and he cares for the desperate and the forgotten. It's a beautiful picture of how faith, even when it seems to cost us our last everything, unlocks God's unending supply. The story doesn't end there. After 3.5 years of this brutal drought, God decides it's time for the final showdown. He tells Elijah, "Go and present yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the land." So Elijah sets off to face his nemesis once again. When Ahab sees Elijah, his first words are, "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" It's a classic case of blaming the messenger. Ahab blames Elijah for the drought, completely ignoring the fact that his own actions, leading the nation into idolatry, were the real cause of the trouble. But Elijah doesn't back down. He throws the accusation right back at Ahab, saying, "I have not made trouble for Israel, but you and your father's family have. You have abandoned the Lord's commands and have followed the Baals." Then Elijah proposes the ultimate contest. It's a high-stakes, public spectacle designed to prove, once and for all, who the real God is. He tells Ahab to summon all the people of Israel to Mount Carmel, and he says to bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah, who were supported by Queen Jezebel. This is going to be a massive event. When everyone is gathered on the mountain, the verdict was clear. In that single dramatic moment, the power of God was displayed in a way that no one could deny. Baal was a fraud. The Lord was the one true God. Following this incredible display, Elijah commands the people to seize the prophets of Baal, and they are executed, cleansing the land of this false worship. Immediately after this victory, Elijah tells King Ahab, "Go, eat and drink, for there is the sound of a heavy rain." Elijah climbs back up Mount Carmel, crouches down to the ground, and puts his face between his knees in a posture of intense prayer. He sends his servant to go and look toward the sea. The servant comes back and says, "There is nothing there." Elijah tells him, "Go back." 7 times he sends his servant. This shows the persistence of faith. Elijah knew God had promised rain, and he was going to keep praying until he saw it. Finally, on the 7th time, the servant returns and says, "A cloud as small as a man's hand is rising from the sea." That was all Elijah needed to see. He tells his servant to rush to Ahab and tell him to hitch up his chariot and go down before the rain stops him. In a short time, the sky grew black with clouds, the wind rose, a heavy rain started falling, and Ahab rode off to his palace. The long, devastating drought was finally over, not by the will of Baal, but through the faithful prayer of God's servant, Elijah. What an incredible story of courage, faith, and the undeniable power of the one true God. Thank you so much for joining me today to explore this amazing story. If it inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into these timeless narratives. See you in the next video, and God bless.